So is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau possibly staring at the toughest battle of his political career so far, and especially in the wake of Deputy Prime Minister and its Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's resignation? Several politicians, including some of his own Liberal Party, have called for his ouster, and this is something which is already mounting. The pressure is mounting. So will he heed the demands or stay put? And what are the possible options for Justin Trudeau? We're going to talk about that, and we're very glad to be joined by Professor Swaran Singh from School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. Thank you very much, Professor Singh. Such a pleasure talking to you, sir. So, Justin Trudeau says he will reflect, quote unquote, his next move. So far, he is, we know, refused to bow down to the pressure and resign as the Prime Minister of Canada. Quoting him, he says, in difficult times, it's not time to stop. It's time to be ambitious and audacious. How precarious you think he's placed politically?
Thank you, Sakal. I think increasingly the situation for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has increasingly become more and more complex, more and more challenging. And it's a combination of several of the things that have been happening over the last 2 years or so. Gradually, the whole build-up by opposition to begin with, you remember his opposition leader in Parliament, Pierre Poilievre, has used often very harsh language, calling Justin Trudeau weak and wacky and so on. Then, of course, his coalition partner, again, who had walked out about nearly 2 months back, is now openly, Jagmeet Singh of the New Democratic Party is openly asking for his resignation, saying that he no longer has the mandate and he's not shown capability to address challenges, and that his party is fighting among themselves rather than fighting for Canadians, as he says. Then, of course, now within Liberal Party, again, the third level is where the senior leaders, now we saw only this Monday, the Deputy Prime Minister, a very seasoned senior leader, who's been earlier Foreign Minister, Trade Minister, now Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland has also resigned, calling him out for his political gimmicks and so on. We have differences and we cannot work together and so on. And add to that a lot of economic challenges that Canada has been facing under Justin Trudeau's leadership. Housing crisis, healthcare crisis, inflation, price rise, and of course the huge fiscal deficit. The target for this year was that they should control it within $40 billion. It has crossed $60 billion as reports are. And now over and above, see the way President Donald Trump is talking about raising tariffs by 25%. He's blaming Canada of, sort of trafficking of opium and so on.
Okay.
In that sense, the close friends are now beginning to blame each other. Today only the Canadian Finance Minister, the new Finance Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, has decided to $1 billion+ of investment on border security. So I think increasingly the situation is becoming very difficult for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to continue.
Okay. Having said that, Trudeau's popularity has plunged, sir, and polls show that if the general elections were held today, his party would lose to its main rival, that's the Conservative Party. So is that also adding to the popular public perception?
I think if you see the Canadian media, if you see how intellectuals, academics are talking, other than politicians that we already have discussed, I think increasingly the mood in nation is becoming very anti-Justin Trudeau particularly. May not be so much against his Liberal Party, and his popularity ratings, as you mentioned, have been really falling. But it's a constant process that one can notice that in 2015 elections, when last time the Liberal Party came to power, they had come to power with about 40% plus votes in their favor. In the next elections in 2019, the voting support came down to 33%. And then in another 2021 snap elections came down to 32%. So gradually over a period of time, Liberal Party's support base has also shrunk. And now, of course, this more recent, nearly 2 years of period when personally Justin Trudeau has become increasingly unpopular, almost unacceptable as leader. So I think it is time, as I keep saying, that he has to listen to basically his own inner voice for maintaining decorum
But it seems he's not in that mood, space or frame of mind. He's ignoring the clamor to step down very clearly, talking about being time for being ambitious and audacious. He has reiterated that he plans to stay on as a Liberal leader. So in the next elections, can this whole confidence or overconfidence backfire?
I think the opposition within Liberal Party for Justin Trudeau, particularly after Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland's resignation, is very apparent and open. So he can persist whatever time he can until a no confidence motion comes on against him. He's trying all kinds of possibilities of sales tax holidays, of GST holidays, trying to sort of play populist methodologies, which are not sustainable, because we are talking of the economic deceleration, we are talking of the enormous fiscal deficit, and to handle those situations, such populist sort of gimmicks of giving freebies is not something that can be sustained by any imagination. So I think it's a last ditch effort to continue to stick to the position, but in that sense of his legacy, I think this may not wear him very good in the long run.
Yeah.
He's still younger. He could have a long innings in Parliament, in politics. I think it is time that dignity and decorum of Prime Minister's office has to be looked upon as something that he needs to take care of, bother about his legacies, as to how people will remember him.
Also,
and that should make him find a face saver as soon as possible.
Also, does he have that bandwidth to appease if he wants some of his disgruntled MPs, the prominent ones? He could offer them some cabinet positions. Is there a likelihood of cabinet shuffle or reshuffle engineered by Trudeau? Cabinet to replace ministers who are not seeking re-election. I mean, this is a sort of narrative, sir, which is growing also, like gaining a lot of traction in the Canadian media also.
Sakal, in case of Canadian Prime Minister's position, he holds all the executive powers of the government. So he has, of course, enormous leverages of distributing goodies, whether it is reshuffling of the cabinet ministry or all kinds of other incentivizing of, desperate effort to ensure people continue to allow him to stay in Prime Minister's position. But what I'm saying is, given the economic challenges, economic crisis that Canada is facing today, those freebies may not be sustainable, is why I'm saying that ultimately it is good for him to find a dignified way of creating a succession plan. And if he is able to somehow manage the leadership of Liberal Party continuing to be in power with another leader coming as Prime Minister, he will perhaps have a chance until October to redeem his respectability in whatever manner and continue to play an important role in politics in coming years. But if he is virtually pushed off the cliff in an effort of all politicians coming together in that sense to ensure that he leaves office in not a very dignified manner,
right,
that will ensure opposition coming to power whenever elections happen.
Yes, Professor saying Justin Trudeau can also resign. I mean, in such a case, the Liberal Party will have to choose a new leader. So now the next possible or natural question is, who is going to be the next Prime Minister in line?
Apparently, there is no clear name as yet in the picture. But of course, we understand that if someone has reached to the stature of becoming Deputy Prime Minister and is now standing virtually against him or distancing from the Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland could become an important candidate right now, but there is a possibility of any other candidate also emerging once the issue of resignation is a reality. So far, since that is not a reality, I think there will be always a lot of fence hitters in the party who are not sure which way their sort of future lies and which way they want to lean, whether they want to lean with Justin Trudeau or against him. Apparently, there is a certain voice. We heard that there was a secret letter sent to him to resign on 28th of October, which of course did not happen. Now again, about 8 to 10 MPs of Liberal Party have publicly gone ahead and said he should resign. So in that sense, there is a constant challenge that he is facing. There is no doubt about it. But if there is any name at this stage who could possibly change him, I think it's really the Deputy Prime Minister, who right now is a very seasoned, very senior minister in his council of ministers,
Senior-
and she has stood up against him.
Yes, against him, but she used to be one of his most prominent and trusted cabinet minister. Last question, sir. What do you think, has this really taken a strong beating as far as, what does this really mean for his international image? Do you think this has taken a strong beating?
I think it's not just Justin Trudeau's image here that we are talking of. When you look at how the world is looking at what is happening in Canada, it's the Liberal Party which is taking the sort of negative publicity. Canada itself is getting a certain amount of negative publicity. The confidence of, I think, Canadian people would be also impacted upon. You hear New Democratic Party leader Jagmeet Singh saying that this is a time when we all should stand together and defend the prosperity and peace of Canadian citizens rather than fighting with each other. So he's clearly indicating to the demoralization of common people as to how their politicians are clinging to power with all kinds of means possible on their disposal. So I think it's an image of not just Justin Trudeau that is at stake here. It's an image of the entire political
Canada.
elite. It's the image of Canadian nation as such, which is at stake here. And that is why I'm saying I think we should now expect him to go beyond legalities and look at the dignity and the decorum of Prime Minister's Office of Canada. And I think he should ensure some face saver and create a succession plan where he can sustain himself
Right.
as part of politics.
Well, as of now, Professor Singh, one thing is very clear, that his reluctance to step down is not really auguring well with his own camp, right? We'll have to see how the situation pans out in the next few days. But meanwhile, always a pleasure, Professor Singh, talking to you. Thank you very much.